Uh-oh. Let's see, go live.
I see it all.
Yay! Okay. So I think it's the only one that's having a problem right now is LinkedIn. They just started that, so. And we are live. It's like, hi everybody. We are live here today. Super excited. We're gonna, everyone will come on. We'll give them a little bit of time, but in the meantime, we have Melissa Chung here. Welcome again to the Savvy Entrepreneur Spotlight, guys. I think the last time we did this was probably about a month ago. So, we're excited to have. We love bringing you all new, established business owners that are really making a mark in their industries. And today we have Melissa Chung with us. Hi, Melissa.
Michelle, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Melissa is a techie in the beauty industry. So, so not only is she beautiful, but she's smart.
Oh. Now you're making me blush.
It's showing. She's blushing. She's blushing. Thanks everyone for joining us. So today, Melissa's going to tell us a little bit about her journey as an entrepreneur, her biggest successes, some of her challenges and how she overcame them, how she's been a trailblazer and glass ceiling shatterer and power female entrepreneur. She's like, oh my gosh, the pressure, Michelle.
Oh my goodness, what are you talking about?
She's like, where is she? So Melissa, start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself and the Krippit designs.
Sure. Let me start. Where did I begin my journey? I began my journey just trying to solve my own problem, and people say that that's usually the best way to start. I actually didn't truly grasp that until I was like, okay, I can see why, because it does lead to the whole passion. But quickly, I guess I can begin with showing everyone. So, women, we love our heels. I'm just going to show you guys. Okay.
Yay!
And so, I was just. There's so many times where we're wearing these, lovely pieces of art, and we find ourselves in sticky situations. So it's happened to me so many times, and because I'm usually doing multitasking, I was like getting sick and tired of being, thinking of how do I get from one place to another without having to carry another pair of shoes or having to switch another pair. So that's actually what led me to sort of, creating our invention here. So it's actually in these little boxes you can see. I'll put it on in a second after I'll show you more about it. But yeah, no, it's honestly, I was just trying to solve my own problem because there's, as I said, so many times where I'm at an outdoor event and I was like, okay, I don't want to take off my shoes. I want to keep them on, So simple solution, but and that's actually what got the start of my journey. It was just this idea, but and just going back to where it came from. So I actually went back later on to do my MBA at Cornell. And, that really gave me, I would say, the foundations to sort of, and confidence really to execute this plan. So that's why I would say, it doesn't matter when you go back to school, I guess. But, my background was in finance. So again, very different. But at the same time, I think that being an entrepreneur, you end up wearing many hats, and it doesn't matter what background you come from. So that's sort of like where I began, and our company actually just really the idea sparked from my MBA, and then came back to Toronto, and I kept on iterating actually. So it took a while, but that's just part of the journey of making a wearable. So I think in terms of myself, I've been in finance for almost let's say a good maybe more than 5 years now, I'm thinking, but I really always wanted to do something that was, I think, more creative. And that's because, just going back to my family, my grandparents actually used to own a tailor store, like a tailor shops. So just probably it's in my blood.
Awesome. So you started in finance and then you're in beauty/tech. And so you kind of breezed by what the product is, right? So you created
so technically it's a high heel protector.
And ladies.
I know, and I'm trying to show on my camera here. Yay. So this is like one of those ones with jewels,
and it's blinged out.
Yeah, this one. Oh yeah, we have all sorts of ones. Got some different ones here, but the idea was that I wanted a simple solution that could, us women can just pop these in our purses and just put them on and not feel as self-conscious, I would say, right? Because sometimes we're juggling so many things, so many tasks. I'm like, the last thing I need to do is, like, a few of my actually other colleagues, their heels, like, I've seen them go right through the sewage grates.
The grass.
That's actually why I created it. I was like, 5 outdoor weddings I had actually.
Exactly.
It was like a couple of years ago, and I was like, you know what? This is actually a problem, and it's dangerous. Believe me, I did a lot of documenting on this, but the idea was so you can actually just twist on, and we actually use a silicone on the inside. But I think part of like this whole journey for myself is really about how things are made, and because I don't have an engineering background, it was a little bit more challenging. But that once again shows you, if you have an idea, I would suggest people just to keep going for it, because if you can see an end to the whole problem, there'll be someone there to help, like, you along the way, like make it, create it. Just have to find the resources. But yeah, that's really how I got to this point. But yeah, it's been, as I said, it's a whole process itself. Is a journey, and it can be very frustrating sometimes. So just being saying it's kind of considered a hardware space because I use 3D printing.
Okay.
Product, yeah. So it's been that's why it's been such a, I would say, it takes a lot longer and more patience than just your I guess just like a different most of the other the other tech companies, I would say, they seem to be able to do these like prototypes faster and but depends what you're doing actually.
So a lot of our audience, right? They've seen, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, right? So they hear words like prototype and tech and funding, and they start thinking like Shark Tank, right?
Yes.
So like, how would you, I don't want to say dumb it down, but how would you dumb it down for us that have never been through that process? Like, how did you pivot from a career in finance to creating a product that people use and love, and now it's selling?
I would say, do your research. Like, I was really big on research right from the start. Like, we didn't even execute until, like, I think I was questioning. You start questioning yourself at first, especially if it's not your space. Like, sort of like, as I said, I have a finance background, so design and everything. I didn't go to design school, but I know what I like. So. And I had this vision, and I think I've documented enough. I did a lot of research. So I think if you're able to articulate and do the research that can sort of explain to people what your goals are, that's also really important. But for us, it's like getting the data was really important. Like, so we kept on like qualifying our data, as in, because I knew I was creating a product that was not really, there's nothing really like it on the market. So first to market can be challenging. I wouldn't say I'm first, but I'm or similar products, but there hasn't been a main solution. It's kind of like I like to compare myself to or the problem to Spanx, right? So
yes, that's a good one.
But why hers, right? It was a whole it was the fabric, it was a process, it was what she was creating, right? And it was the feeling of what Spanx does for a woman. Even though we can't see it, it's not up there. It's the confidence in, it's how you look and feel overall, right? So that's why I could see her journey being really challenging too, because, and I know I've read so much about, I just know so much about Sarah's journey, just because, again, she's one of, I would say, definitely an inspiration, I guess, because like, I can relate on every aspect if she talks about her journey, because I felt like I've gone through the same thing. And so
absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's where the numbers came in. So because, the finance background and understanding where to find funding and if it's possible. But I think for me, it was really making sure that like there's going to be sales, right? And where am I going to find them? How am I going to do this? So
where did you make your first sale? Who bought your product first?
Actually, it was an event up here. It's similar to, I would say, your Kentucky Derby. It's one of the biggest horse races up in Canada. Up here. Actually, it is probably the biggest in Canada. But it's the event happens. It's women get dressed up and wear their hair fascinators, and the events all take place on grass because it's a horse racing event. So that's a market where everybody's wearing, a lot of times they're wearing heels, but and again, like I did imagine my product being there, but I didn't. It was, I think I ended up, it was someone who connected me saying, I think they're looking for a product like that because of their clientele, which is the women coming and
fancy heels.
Yeah,
but they don't want to mess up their heels, right?
And they're all sinking in,
and $900 at minimum of a $900 shoe sinking in the grass.
So yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I had imagined that actually as my market, but so when I would say they were my first big customers, in weddings actually. So a lot of times it's weddings, right? Too. So it's between the two, I would say, sectors that actually really helped launch it. So it's interesting how I say I like to, I do target to a B2C, but at the same time, like this was, I guess, before COVID, a lot of it came from event orders. So that's where the bulk of it came from. It's events and places where you never thought would actually, I would say you would find the customer. But that leads me to another point: is make sure you actually, I think it's important when you first, trying to test out your market, your products, or your concept. Make sure you actually you listen to what the market tells you, because a lot of times I think as founders we end up having these ideas in our heads and we're like, oh, it's such a great idea, but it's really who pays for it, right?
Yeah. So, and who you have to pay back sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And who you have to pay back. So a couple things, right? So you said some really awesome things. So one, I want to talk to you a little bit. We have so many people in the audience that are from different industries, right? Mm-hmm. So hi Shmishka, hi Gersha. Emily says she's loving the conversation so far. Everyone that's out there, if you have any questions for Melissa about being an entrepreneur, about pitching investors, about technology and beauty and being in the product space, drop them in the comments and we'll make sure we get them answered. So Melissa, let's talk to you, because I see we have some realtors out there. We have some service-based people out there. We have a couple of product-based people out there. And so one of the things that we all have in common is that we're all entrepreneurs, small business owners, right? And I see a lot of women right now in our audience. What do you think has been, how has that been for you being a woman in a male-dominated industry?
Oh, it's just, it's like it happened both times, like in finance completely, right? That's
true.
What caused me to make this product because the men couldn't understand that I was in heels off the top and I couldn't catch up. It's, just, I would say just believe in what you're doing, because like, I can't tell you how many times I'm like the only woman up on stage, and I know there's women out there who pitch and everything, but I guess it'd be like a finalist for a competition or anything like that, and it's usually myself and a bunch of engineers. So it's a little challenging, but I think for me, I just take it as, that's a win still, because I'm educating the market about a process or or a product that they never knew existed, obviously, and I think that it's different. I'm a different face and a different industry, so they're getting a lot of diversity when I usually I think
in one package.
Yeah.
Awesome. So share with us a story, right? People love, of course, storytelling, but tell us a story about either the one moment that was either a really challenging moment or a really inspiring moment.
I would say I have so many of these little I call them little wins or milestones. I think there's there's so many times where, or it's a sort of like a thought you have, when I was younger, You always imagined going to London Fashion Week or all these fashion weeks, right? You know, even when I was younger, I used to say, "Oh, I want to go," right? So I think when you get the opportunity and you get that sort of, that message that, okay, you know what, you're, you're selected. So you want to, it was, so I actually got to go last year twice. And I think it's, when I talk about it, sometimes I'm like, that's a little surreal actually, because I'm there with veteran, like 25-year-old, designers, very prominent in the Canadian market, but also international, they've grown. And I think it's like, their reaction to me is almost priceless, because it's like, they're like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I'm not quite the designer, but in that sense, I guess I am the designer, because that's just, I just fall in that category when they did the events. So, this was an opportunity I had, I entered through, it was a grant through the government, and it was curated by the Toronto Fashion Incubator, which they did an amazing job, just making sure if we're going to an international market, or global market, actually I should say, that we don't have to worry. We just have to worry about getting our products and really presenting ourselves there, because I see the work that goes into it, and I can appreciate that it's a lot of work for these fashion weeks. So it's not just about the work, it's about the whole experience. So I'm so grateful, I would say. It was more of event driven rather than just, as you mentioned, like a win. But I think overall it really did give me a big boost.
Absolutely. I mean, that's amazing. You showing up and being exposed at London Fashion Week was someplace that you always wanted to be. It sounds like a win in my book.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you say that like that, but it's one of those things on your list that like, wouldn't it be nice if I did that? So and I have to sometimes reflect, and it's those like moments that I pretty much don't get to say, oh my gosh, I did achieve that, or it's, and sometimes I guess as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to validate yourself. So what's challenging, I would say, about having to, when you're a startup, you are always trying to not just sell to your customers, but you're also, for myself, I am seeking investors, because there's a really big opportunity to scale, and as well as because our process itself, it gets quite costly. And I know that a lot of times you hear about these stories, about these brands, they've partnered with someone. There's something behind it, or it could be initiative driven by, maybe a group or collaboration. It is quite challenging, and especially now with like a very crowded e-commerce space, I would say. Yeah. So there's quite a few challenges. So that's also why you almost need to fund to help you get, market and really get past that in order to I would say scale, actually.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a question by Noah Young, which is like absolutely perfect, right? Hi, Melissa. Can you talk about your marketing strategy for a unique luxury product? Like you said, it's a crowded space, right? So what we talked a little bit about, the first couple of events. What are you doing to stay relevant in this crowded space?
So actually, it's funny you said that. So unfortunately, this is part of my pivot story, but it's not so much of a pivot as in I consider myself a wearable company, because we made a product using technology, but also I've always had other products in mind. But this really pushed me to go the extra mile, and it just came down to like this time. I actually, believe it or not, I mean, I kind of knew how to sew, but not like that well. But I have taught myself like during this time period. And I mean, it's funny, in the other room I have I have like 2 3D printers over here, then I have sewing machines over there, and it's just it's like,
wow,
so
cool.
old and new, like equipment. But so when I was making the mask, it was I had started one, so I did start 3D printing them out, but it was really challenging. So I wanted to think of another way that I would say, how do is there a purpose to actually 3D printing it, or should I just sew it, or like, you know, so to speak. But it was all because I wanted to have the valve. I just thought the valve was something that could help with,
and
know,
this is an actual like fake COVID-19 face mask.
yeah, like some of them have valves on them, and I think you've seen they just look
Yeah.
like that sir. But you know, and that part can be 3D printed out. So I was always thinking that, how do you, like, can it interchangeable? So in order just to be consistent with, like, I knew that masks, there didn't seem to be a lot of fancy, so we did create one that has similar to the idea of the Krippit. It has jewels on it. It has jewels on it, and so forth. But I wanted to make it more. Why am I including the tech in it, and not just regular manufacturing, right? So the more I actually realized that, you know, when people are talking about the problems that are going on right now in terms of social distancing and temperature telling. So in terms of like mobilizing people, like they want to be able to take their temperature and be able to, you know, I guess document if someone has maybe been exposed to COVID. I think those are some of the touch points. And that just made me think of, I don't know how it came to my head, but when I was younger, I don't know if you guys remember that there's these mood rings that change color. Yes. So there's a filament actually with 3D printing that allows for that actually as well. And it's based on your sort of like a body, pretty much a body temperature. So that's when I started thinking, and I actually, it was another girl that I talked to too that actually, and she's part of another organization of this, I call it maker space, wearable space that we're all part of. And, you know, we were just brainstorming, and it just said, I'm like, why don't we see if we can like change color and detect a temperature? So that's what I'm actually working on. It's a face mask that will change color based on if you're able to tell if someone has a temperature. Now there's also obviously a lot of iteration, but this is where the next part of, like, you know, if you have an idea, you just this is where you gotta do all the research and just keep networking. Yes, that's what it is about.
Awesome. Do you do any online marketing? Like, do you have a Facebook ad strategy? Do you guys have like funnels and email campaigns and all that good stuff?
So, you know, I think that's really important to keep a really good, I would say it's important to keep a good, like, I call them for I guess realtors or any financial advisors, like prospects, you know, you know, potential.
Keep your pipeline full.
But now, you know, one of the things that I know, I would say I always write these like little points down everywhere, because I'm like, oh yeah, new strategy. The important part is making sure you qualify them first, because you realize that over time, like, it's much more beneficial to have a very targeted niche, like if it's like for me before the wedding industry, or I think now it's the outdoor space event industry. Keeping a very tight niche on, like, understanding that market, because it allows you to zoom in and figure out like their needs and wants also on how you can, because you can't, especially as a startup, you can't expect people to buy from you right away. I think that's something that people maybe may or may not know. Like, and I was mistaken too, because I thought, I'm like, who wouldn't want it? They just go on and buy it. No, it's not quite like that.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, it's a lot of education, but it's this psyche, and so I realized over time that it's really making sure that your strategy is like aligned and targeted towards, like, as I said, if it was the wedding industry, it would be like you might want to send out like articles or anything that's aligned with that industry. So it's better to have, I would say, a very focused, I would say, pipeline of customers. And so, you know, it leads me to another point, where is just creating, like, if you have, like, let's say I call it a content calendar.
Okay. Yeah, like an editorial calendar. So your content mapped out.
Yeah, I think I didn't really put that into writing until more recently, where I was like, okay, you know what? Now let's define a strategy, especially because it's a newer product. I have to like focus on who, between partners, investors, and as I said, even though I have a female, like my product is female for my heel protector, I would say a huge portion of my list, there's still a lot of males in there. And that's because they're interested and they understood it. And they're interested because they had a loved one or that they were excited to tell. And that's also another way to get sales. So sometimes it's not even directly your customer. And this is where I was stressing on, make sure you listen and understand your potential customers, because you don't know where exactly they come out from.
So question for you. So you're a founder, right? So that means that, you know, your expertise is 3D printing, building a product, networking, pitching. And who handles your marketing? Do you have a team? Do you have someone on your team that handles that?
Yeah, no, I have, right now I have 2 of them from, I'm part of, actually, it's a fashion incubator. And, what I would say their expertise is, I don't have the fashion background, but they do. So they're both from fashion communication. So that really, it's great because I learn from them as much as, they're learning, I guess, more they call it the boring business part for me, but they actually, they give me a lot of ideas too, in terms of execution. And I would say, because my background isn't in marketing necessarily, I have them to help. I ask a lot of why. Are you sure? You hear me ask a lot of questions. And yeah, they actually, I think we work really well together, because I'll actually question them, is that a good strat? Is that good timing? And they'll actually fill me in. Maybe they're like, right now during this time, people aren't marketing this way right now. So they'll bring up a lot of relevant issues where I might have not seen it. So I think it's really important to, I know as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to kind of, just forget about we talk to ourselves a lot in a day.
Yes.
And it is good to maybe once a week, or to bounce those ideas off of someone else, and even if it's a colleague or anybody else. It's just because
anybody else.
just don't keep it to yourself, because you never know where you might be going. So yeah, I would say it's the concept is really, we do a lot of I would say A/B testing, right? Because we're like, we don't know what works, and sometimes it really does. These algorithms are actually they drive me nuts even.
And they change every day.
Exactly, and sometimes you realize that maybe I should just keep on creating this authentic voice of where I'm actually getting the sales from, and if it's not necessarily online, it's sometimes good to have different also I would say distribution distribution channels in your pipeline, so you're not just, it's good to be focused, but sometimes you
want to leave some of your budget to test different things. Exactly. Right? It's spend most of it on what works, but also leave some of it to test new stuff, right? Exactly. So I heard some really cool stuff that you said, right? So one, about the marketing strategy, you said niching down, right? Being very targeted about who you're talking to. Don't spend your time chasing everyone. Know your audience. And then I love the fact that you talked about testing, right? And then the other thing is that operate in your area of genius, right? You are a founder, so you're leveraging other experts around you to kind of manage your marketing and the day-to-day stuff there. I think it's pretty awesome.
Definitely. And it's, as I said, it's good to bounce ideas off of other.
Exactly. And honestly, that was kind of the premise for the whole savvy business community. It was we're all entrepreneurs, and I always say we don't have the water cooler, when you're at work, or the conference room, or let's go grab lunch or coffee. We spend a lot of our times at our computers, by ourselves, talking, fighting imposter syndrome, right? Trying to boost yourself up to do things, and overcoming the fact that you think you can't. So Savvy was built so that way we can have these water cooler moments, right? We can learn from each other and bounce off of each other. So I really want to thank you for giving your time to come and talk to us today.
Oh no, thank you again. I really as I said, it's actually a nice break to not just be having to pitch numbers right now. So I'm like, what are we doing it? I never thought about it. So if it's, I hope that's some helpful for maybe not all industries, but just I think applying a good discipline and even if you're just ranking your own actions, like saying, and just keeping your end goal in mind is usually how I would say that could be applied across the board in several industries.
Absolutely. If there was one thing that you could leave for entrepreneurs that are following in your footsteps, what would it be?
I think it's just stressing like be true to your brand, like be authentic. And I would say being authentic is at first I didn't even understand what that. Of course I know what that means, but what does it actually mean to be like? And a lot of it has to do with how you build your company and what your own principles and values are actually.
I love that.
It's what, so just keep true to that, because investors will actually see through that. And, it's something that people apparently pick up on. Like if you're being, I think there's, they use a term, what is it called? For sustainability greenwashed. If you're greenwashing or something, I didn't even know that was the thing. Like, I was like, I didn't. But I guess, people have actually, there's, I guess, a bit of that where people can see through that. So that's where I'm saying, I mean, that's one thing to really keep, on, and that's about branding, right? But
absolutely.
And just, I would say, have your, have a tribe, I guess, close to you. And again, it's being able to relate to people.
Yay. I love that. Be authentic, guys. I preach that myself. Like, just be you, right? Not everyone's going to love you. Not everyone's going to like you. But at least the people that do will really, really authentically like you and love you, right? And follow you. So I think that that's super awesome. Again, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll stay a part of the Savvy community and leverage us as your tribe as well. Especially me, because I'll be in touch.
You guys are completely my tribe, because you're all, as I said, entrepreneurs, and it's and you guys were the biggest thing is entrepreneurs are more. I find they're open-minded, which is what and the products I create. You need to have an open mind.
Exactly. I love your product, by the way. I mean, but I am a girly girl and I wear heels and I don't like them sinking.
Right?
Yes, I think it's awesome. And we wish you so much success, and whatever we can do to help you on your journey, let us know, because, we'll do the same.
No, for sure. And just, I guess if anyone's interested, just go to our website and we'll be more than happy.
So how do we find you? I'm sorry. How do we find you? Where do we find you online?
It's so Krippit, Krippit.
Awesome. And is it the same for social?
So on Instagram, I think we're Krippit 3D. So for 3D. And then on Twitter, we are Krippit 1.
Awesome. So guys, to definitely support a female entrepreneur out there, to buy gifts for your family and friends. And again, just to remind you guys what Krippit is, you're going to show us again the blinged out Krippit, Melissa.
Here, I'm trying to.
Awesome.
Camera, there.
There you go.
There you go. I'm like trying. This is me, like.
Yeah. So Melissa actually started just to recap, guys, she started in finance and she had a highly successful career, like most of the Savvy audience. And then she decided to pivot because she saw a need, right? She was in a male-dominated industry wearing heels. And every time they were at an outdoor event, or she said she had multiple outdoor weddings, her heels were sinking. So she saw a need and created a solution. And now she has a very successful business. And we are happy that she gave us some of her time today.
Yeah, thank you again for having me.
Thanks, Melissa. Bye. Bye, Savvy community. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.